Hey, welcome back. Today, I'm going to pick up where I left off on my last video, where I created the speaker. And now I'm going to show how I made the keypad. But if you haven't watched my previous video, you might want to stop now and go watch that one first. Because I'm going to be moving a little faster in this one, and I'm not going to explain how I inserted the reference image and things like that, because that's all covered in the other video. And there's a link in the description if you want to go check it out. So to begin with, I want to create this faceplate. And to do that, I'll hit the number 1 key on the number pad to jump into front view. Then I'll grab the corner rectangle tool, and then I'll click to set the first corner, and then move my cursor down to the other corner, and click to place the second point. And now I'll click inside the rectangle to select the face, which will put me into extrude mode. And I'll grab the handle and extrude up a little bit. Then right click to accept it, and I'll name this faceplate. And now I'll hit the number 1 key to jump back into front view, and I'll hide the faceplate for now. And you can see that I still have my rectangle here, so I'm going to reuse it to create a button. So I'll click here on the edge to select it. Then I'll scale and move it into position using the keyboard shortcuts S for scale and G for move. And now I'll click inside the rectangle to select the face and extrude it up. And then I'll select these corner edges and give them a little bit of a fillet. And this will be my button, but I need to cut a hole in the faceplate for the button to fit into. So I'll hit Shift D to duplicate it, and I'm going to scale it up so it's just a little bit bigger than the button. Then I'll hide the rectangle and the button, and unhide the faceplate. And I'll move this part back a little bit so it's poking through the back side of the plate. And then I'll hit the number 1 key to jump into front view. And now I need to hide the faceplate again for a minute so I can see the reference image. And then I'll come down here and click the rectangular array button. And I'll set the number to 3. And then I'll drag over until the buttons look about right. Then I'll click to set the array. And now I can come down here and type in the distance I want. So I'll change distance 1 to 2.1 and click OK. Then I'll click rectangular array again, and this time I'll set the number to 4, and then I'll drag down until the buttons look like they're lining up with the image. And then I'll click to set the array, and then I'll change distance 1 to 2.9 and click OK. And now I can turn the faceplate back on, and I think the spacing and everything looks good. So I'll select the faceplate, then shift select these objects. Then I'll come down here and click the Boolean button, make sure I'm set to difference, and then click OK. And now I can turn the button back on, but it's sticking out too much, so I'm going to scale it down. Maybe something like that for now. And then I'll hide the button because I want to chamfer these edges. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key and click on this edge to select the entire edge loop. Then if I hold down Shift and Alt, I can select all the edges. Then I'll hit B for fillet, or you can also come over here and click this button with the 3 dots. And that will give you access to all the commands, and you can scroll through and find what you're looking for. And if you scroll down here to F, you can find fillet, and you see the keyboard shortcut is B. So then I can grab this handle and drag over to either create a fillet or a chamfer, depending on which direction you move your mouse. So I'm just going to drag over a little bit and put a little chamfer on the edges. And now I'm going to turn my button back on, and I'll rename this to button. And I think that's looking pretty good. But I'm going to hold down Alt and select this top edge loop and put a little fillet radius on it. And now I want to put a little curved indentation on the face of the button. So I need to create a sphere at the center of the button. But if I try to create the sphere and I snap to the center of the button and drag out, you see it's trying to cut a hole in the button. So I need to click to set the diameter, then come down here and disable this option, and now I have a sphere. So I can right click to accept it and then hit G and move it away from the button and scale it up until I get a size that I like. And you may have to go back and forth a bit before you get something that looks good, but once you're happy with it, right click to accept it. And now I can select the button and shift select the sphere, come down here to Boolean, make sure I'm set to difference, and click OK. And now I have a nice curved indentation. So now I have a button, but I need to make it hollow on the backside because when I take this into Blender, I want to put a small plane object behind the button with an emission shader so the light will come through the numbers that I'm going to cut into the buttons in a minute. So to hollow out the button, I'm going to unhide my rectangle and select it. Then I'll hold down the Control key and hit number 1 on the number pad to switch to the back view. Then I'll hit S and scale down the rectangle a little bit. Then I'll hit G and move it back a little so I can select the face and extrude it up. Then I'll right click to accept it and hit G and move it forward. Something like that should be good. Then I'll select the button and shift select the box. Go to Boolean, make sure I'm set to difference, and hit OK. And now my button is finished, so I can hide the rectangle. And now I'll do the same thing as before. I'll come down here to Rectangular Array, set the number to 3, drag it over, click to set the array, change distance 1 to 2.1. But now I'm going to do something a little different. I'll set repeat to 4, and then I'll drag down. But that's not working for some reason. So let's undo that and try it again. But it's still not working. I swear, it never fails. I hit record and all of a sudden things don't work the way they're supposed to. So let's see what's wrong. Rectangular array, number set to 3, drag over, and I'm going to set repeat back to 1, drag over, click to set the array, set repeat to 4, and okay, it looks like I forgot to click select endpoint 2. And now I can drag down, click to set the array, and now I can set distance 1 to 2.1, and set distance 2 to 2.9, and click OK. And now I have all my buttons placed. So that was fun. And I just noticed that I have these square corners on the faceplate, so I'll select these corner edges and put a little fillet on them. And then I'll hold down Alt and click on this top edge to select the whole edge loop. And I'll put a little chamfer on this edge. And now the only thing I have left to do is to put the numbers on the buttons. And to do that, I'm going to come down here and click on these 3 dots. And then I'll type text into the search box. And then I can grab the text tool, which will drop in a piece of text here at the origin. But I don't want letters, I want numbers. So I'll type 1 in the text box. And then you have several fonts to choose from. And for this one, I used DM Sans. And the size is fine for now. I can scale it later. So I'll right click to accept it and move it out of the way. Then I'll go back to the text tool, but I don't want to keep coming over here and typing text in the search box. So I'm going to assign a keyboard shortcut. And to do that, all I have to do is right-click and choose Assign Shortcut. Then I'll hold down the Control key and hit T to set the shortcut. And now when I hit Control T, I'll jump directly into the text tool. So for this one, I'll set the text to 2, and I'll set the font to Enter, and then right-click to accept it, and then move it out of the way. And I did the same thing for the rest of the numbers, using different fonts to get the look that I wanted for each number. So I'm speeding up this part because it's the same process over and over until I get all the numbers I need. And now I have all the numbers, so I'm going to select them all, hit R for rotate, and rotate them up 90 degrees so they're facing front, and I'll move them in front of the keypad. And now I need to extrude them all, but the 6, 8, 9, and 0 will be a little more tricky because of these internal areas. And also the pound symbol has a little internal area. So I'll just select the other numbers and extrude them up to 0.25. And now I'll look at these other numbers. I want to extrude the numbers, but not these internal areas. So I need to be careful about where I click. So if I zoom in, it'll be easier to make sure I'm selecting the right faces. And I'll select the 6, and then hold down Shift and select the other numbers. And now I can extrude, and I'll set the distance to 0.25 and click OK. And now I can select all these curve objects and delete them. And the other thing you'll notice if you look closely at the numbers on the reference image is that the numbers 6, 8, 9, 0, and the pound key all have a split running through them. So I'm going to unhide my rectangle again. And I'm going to put these buttons into a group. So I'll select them, then right-click and choose New Group with Current Selection. Or you can hit Control-G. And that will create a new group containing all of your buttons. And I'll rename the group to Buttons, and I'll hide it for right now. And I'll also hide the faceplate. Then I'll hit the number 1 key to switch to front view, and I'll select the rectangle and scale down the width and scale up the height and move it into position. Then I'll hit Shift D to duplicate it and drag it over here. And then Shift D, drag it over here. Shift D again, drag it over here. And Shift D one more time and drag it over here. And then I'll hit R and rotate it slightly. Then I need to zoom in and select all the faces and extrude up. Then right-click to accept and move them all forward. And I can delete these rectangles since I don't need them anymore. So now I'll select the 6 and shift select the cutter object. Go to Boolean, make sure I'm set to difference, and click OK. And I'll do the same thing for the other numbers. And now I'll unhide the buttons and switch to front view. And you can see the numbers are all too big for the buttons. So I'm going to scale them all down to match the size of the asterisk and continue scaling until they look about the right size. Maybe something like that. And I'm going to select the asterisk and rotate it 30 degrees. Then I'll select all the numbers and move them up here. And then I'll move each of them into position individually. And now I'll select them all and move them back so they intersect with the buttons. Then I'll select the button, shift select the number, Boolean, difference, and hit OK. And I'll do this for each button. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do, so let's undo that and try it again. Nope. Undo back a few more times and try it again. Okay, that's better. Yeah, you have to pay attention, especially with this repetitive stuff. You do it right 9 times in a row, and then on the 10th one, your mind wanders for just a second, and you select the objects in the wrong order, or you click the wrong button, and it screws everything up. But anyway, that's looking good now, so I can unhide the faceplate, and I'm done with the keypad. But just like with my last video, this one is running a little long, so I'll do another video to show how to export your model and bring it into Blender for texturing and rendering. And that's going to do it for this one. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and post them below. And as always, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.